Thank you, everybody, for joining this session, Hidden Mobile Debt, Calculating the Cost of Device Mismanagement. We're going to be talking about how devices can drive up costs in your business and be a silent drain on your IT budget in a lot of different forms. But first, I have some housekeeping items to cover. So first, we're going to aim to run about 60 minutes today, hopefully get you all out a little bit early. Second, this webinar is being recorded and you will get a copy of the recording and the slides after the event. And lastly, attendees are all in listen only mode, but please do put your questions into the Q&A function as we go. We are saving some time at the end to get to those questions. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to today's speakers. We have a full house today with three of the most knowledgeable people I know on this topic. Together, they have more than 50 years of experience in this niche. So first, we have Andrea Chaidez. She is the Vice President of Mobility Services at DataPrize. Next, we have John Gonzalez, who's the Director of Mobility Sales here. He has a ton of information from his experience hearing about the toughest mobility problems we're seeing from customers. And last but not least from our expert panel is Josh Chaidez, Senior Manager of Mobility Services at DataPrize. My name is Stephanie Hamrick. I am a Marketing Manager at DataPrize, and I will be your moderator for today as we go along. So next, I'll tell you very quickly about DataPrize for those of you who don't know us. So DataPrize is a national managed services provider. We have been providing services end-to-end for our clients across the United States since 1995. We recently celebrated 30 years. We believe technology should enable you to be the best at what you do. So we work to deliver best-in-class managed mobility, help desk, cybersecurity, network, infrastructure, collaboration, end user, all of the things, all of the solutions to help you get there. And to tell you a little bit more about our experience in the mobile device realm and what makes us experts on this topic today, I'm going to hand it over to Andrea.
Awesome. Thanks, Stephanie. We've been in the mobility space for over 20 years. Our success over the past 20 years stems from our deep industry expertise, a commitment to innovation, and a strong client-centric approach, which is why it makes us a premier line of endpoint management services. We've built long-lasting relationships by continuously adapting to market changes and providing solutions that meet the ever-evolving needs of our clients. Our team's unwavering dedication to operational excellence and problem solving has helped us consistently deliver high-quality service, earning trust and fostering growth in this ever-changing landscape.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrea. With that, let's get into our agenda for today, and I'll share a bit about what is in store. So we've divided all of our tips into two categories. First, areas that you can address right now to start shaving down those costs. And second, actions you might want to take now to avoid serious costs and tech debt from looming over you in the future. So let's jump into that first section, saving money right now. That's usually how I like to save money. I don't know about all of you. But to kick us off here, we're going to get a bit interactive and launch a poll question. So we are going to be asking you, does your organization use company-owned devices, a BYOD program, or a mix of both? I am going to go ahead and launch this poll. And you should see that come up on your screen for you. Seeing some votes come in already. It's a tight race between a mix and company-owned devices. We'll give everyone just a few more moments to answer. A mix of both is taking the lead. All right, I'm going to go ahead and everybody just 10 more seconds to get your votes in. All right, so it looks like a mix of both. was the runaway lead here. Some very interesting stuff. So it does look like a significant number of us on the line here do have some sort of corporate owned devices. And that's where we're going to be starting our journey today. If you are on the BYOD side of things, don't worry, we certainly have some tips for you too. But let's go ahead and get started here. And we're going to talk about our first tip, which is to take a look at your mobile phone bill. When was the last time you really analyzed that for savings? John, I'm going to hand this one over to you to talk more about what this looks like.
Sure. Thank you so much, Stephanie. I really appreciate it. I guess we'll set the stage, right, before jumping into it. So, what we see is companies every size across every industry become mobile centric because we're a mobile first world, right? Managing a vast array of these assets becomes a bigger, more difficult, and a very overwhelming task to manage for an already overstretched IT department, right? So the IT complexity of managing these mobile assets and service providers, alongside the necessity of securing them, can quickly undermine any innovation and any profits if companies don't have the right support and partnerships in place to help them administer and secure the sprawling landscape of all these devices. So you see, for most businesses, managing mobile devices is significantly more complicated than traditional PCs and laptops, as there's a wide range of apps and operating systems and device types and other factors that are unique to the mobile phones and tablets. And what we saw in a showing of statistics that 78% of companies are struggling in mobile device management due to IT recruitment and retention issues, coupled with 73% have issues sourcing new mobile assets. 70% managing mobile inventory. 89% agree that their mobile device help desk requires improvement. And then on the reverse logistics side, collecting and recycling and wiping assets came in at 53%. And on top of that, you mean IT teams also have trouble tracking usage of devices. But it becomes less of a challenge, right, if they are outsourcing to managed mobility companies. So huge internal soft dollar and efficiency savings to be thought about here, right? So how many people do we have managing this internally? Do they have the right tools and expertise to manage their mobile environment securely and efficiency? Do they have time, right? Are they short staffed? So in summary, I mean, the growing dependence on mobile devices is taking a sizable toll on IT resources to the tune of one third, right? So of IT productivity and cost. So now let's talk about savings, right? Hard dollar savings in the tune of 15 to 35% that could potentially be captured immediately, okay, without changing your carrier, without disrupting your service, without spending any additional money. It's what we like to call found money, or creating a revenue stream from a current expense while adding an extension of IT, all at the expense of your current mobile providers through the bill reductions and cost avoidance we can bring to the table. Now, this all starts with a free assessment, no obligation or commitment. It takes about 10 minutes to gather. And if interested, right, we can always share that information to get this assessment done for you. But let's jump into this opportunity here. So this was a credit union. They had, over 100 devices. And, the IT department was a one-man band, right? He has no process. He had no time. People are coming in, people are leaving. He's ordering new devices. Devices are sitting. Management's asking for reports, right? Hey, why is Tom using so much data? He does the same job as Sue Ann and Mary. They use 2 to 3 gigs, right? Why am I paying this person per hour with benefits to be on these devices? So there's a lot of things that go on with it. So he took advantage of this assessment. And again, it takes about 10 minutes. We gather 3 months of cell phone bills and a device report. And what we're able to show is almost $2,200 a month in optimization, right? It's about $26,000 per year that has been going directly to the carriers, right? So we were able to come in out of those 109 devices, and this is going to happen, okay, 10 times out of 10, when we run assessments for companies, they have unused devices, okay, devices that have been sitting for months on full pop rate plans. Nobody's home. People have left the company and they still have these devices. So he had 12 devices that had been sitting unused, right? Two of them, when we went through it, he's like, wait a minute, Bob and Tim haven't been here for 3 years. And I just ordered another 20 phones, right? So this is very complicated. So we came in, we were able to cut costs net of our costs for managing the entire environment. They're going to end up pocketing, $17,000 and getting all this efficiency, control, accountability, and extension of IT, right, to help with managing all the processes and that whole life cycle, cradle to the grave. So whether it's 100 devices, whether it's 10, 20, 40, 100,000 devices, there's always opportunities there, right, for about 15 to 35%, or typically I like to call it around 10 to 20 bucks a line. So if you have 100 devices, right, it's about 1,000 to 2,000, or 10 to 12 to 24,000. If you have 10,000 devices, yeah, it's 100,000 to $200,000, right, in savings monthly that you potentially can be seen. And a lot of it comes through optimization, unused devices, which is a security concern. So even if there's unlimited plans, there's different ways to buy, right? If you have unlimited plans. So this is really about getting it under control and having a process set for scalability, for control, for accountability, processes, right, and policy. That way, teams can have, or companies can have well-oiled machines when it comes to mobility management.
Awesome. Thanks, John. I like one time you told me to think about it in that a lot of companies think if their bill's not going up, that means they're getting a good deal, when in fact, there's often times that it should be going down instead. And so paying attention to every minute detail of your bill is really the key there. And paying attention to those minute details plays really nicely into our next tip, which is just going to be keeping better track of those devices. Like you mentioned, these devices grow legs, they go missing. Why are they so hard to keep track of? But making sure to nail down those details and get that figured out. John, can you tell us more about how that can drive some of these costs down?
Absolutely. Well, as mentioned in the case study above, it's happening to almost every company. Um, it's a very big challenge, especially if, again, we go back to an overstretched IT department that's trying to keep the company secure, trying to innovate. They have projects, and these mobile devices are living and breathing. They're there. So people are leaving, people are coming. So what happens? Where are they? Are they in a drawer? Right? Are they missing? Are they lost? From a security concern, that's very scary, right? So this becomes a hard task for IT and a big concern, a security concern for the company. And then they also have to account for locked devices. So a lot of times, if they don't enroll their devices through an MDM properly, like using corporate IDs, and the companies, they let them put their own Apple IDs on the devices, those devices, if they leave, they become bricks because they can't access them, right? Because of those. So really, there's a big opportunity here to really get processes and down, right, and being able to have that life cycle flow to unlock devices and make sure that, right, everything is being handled. We're watching after the money is of our own, and then putting all these processes together. So those devices, again, very scary. Every assessment we do, there's unused devices, and the biggest thing is when I ask the IT professionals, like, hey, please tell me that you have those in a drawer somewhere, right? And it's you don't. Oh, wow. Okay, let's figure the process out, right, to make sure that we, get these off the account and or get them accounted for.
Hmm. Yep, expensive bricks. That's a great way to put it. Speaking of expensive bricks, we have another tip for you today, and that is to think about extending the lifespan of these devices. Can we make them last just a little bit longer until they turn into those expensive bricks? Andrea, do you want to tell us about how to approach this?
Sure thing. So some tips to consider ensuring you extend the lifespan of that asset. Something often overlooked is protecting that asset with a case and screen protector. We've seen this situation plenty of times. An organization will procure a brand new device for their end users. 2 weeks later, they've dropped the device, they ran over it, the dog got a hold of it, whatever reason you may get. So now to get that device replaced, you're spending, depending on the type of device, an extra $800 to $1,200 to replace it. So we have to think about, could you extend your refresh cycle of these devices by 30% with ensuring there's proper protection and maintenance by spending an additional, 40 bucks for a screen cover and a case. In the end, it's another strategy to avoid additional costs. Additionally, it's necessary to consider properly maintaining the devices in your environment and securing them, as we've been discussing, ensuring the OS is updated, policies around use are in place, and implementing an MDM solution, which will help mitigate and reduce the risk of security related issues.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrea. So, extending that refresh cycle, even just a few percentage points, can really make a difference with phones being as expensive as they are nowadays. From here, I'm going to hand it back over to John to talk about how really being policy and process driven can drive down costs and drive up efficiency. You're on mute, John.
Wow. Right. So the foundation of a well uh, put together mobile environment starts with the foundation of a mobile policy. That is the rule book, right? Without policy, right, the only winners become the carriers. I mean, these are living and breathing devices. People are going home, they're canceling their home internet, they're running the whole house off the device, they're giving the tablets and the smartphones to the kids to watch cartoons, not syncing up the Wi Fi. And at the end of the day, these are business tools, right? They aren't for your friends to use leisurely, and they can be a huge security concern. So, one of the biggest things that we help our clients with is policy, right? Policy around appropriate devices, right? What is your onboarding and offboarding policy? What's your policy around procuring new devices? What's your policy around appropriate use of the devices? Um, so there's a lot that goes. The BYOD devices, right? There's policy around that that needs to be, and then there's also policy around properly disposing of the devices. So there's got to be that, cradle to the grave management, right? From the time that you get the device all the way to the when you have to retire or decommission that device. There's got to be policy set into that. So hands down, without policy, right? Everything just there's no policies. Look, you have if you have multiple divisions, right? And this division's, ordering, iOS devices. They're ordering, Android devices, and they get whatever they want. These guys don't get whatever they want. So there's got to be some kind of rules and set, right? Policy and processes throughout the company. So that's one of the most important things is policy.
Yeah, and it sounds like without policy, right, you're making everything less efficient. You're having to decide in every single case what to do. Making those decisions takes time. Implementing those things takes time. Can you talk a bit about just the efficiency that you can save when you take the time to create all of these policies in advance and not just as you go?
Yeah. So we really become the aspirin, right, for managing mobile devices because it's hard, right? It's overwhelming. IT does not like it, right? Because it changes too quickly. And what we found was there was a study done by Osterman Research that on average, a company that has 100 to 500 devices has about 2 to 3 employees working about 20 hours, right? Managing mobile devices between IT, finance, procurement, people coming in, help desk support. So there's a lot of people that are touching this that are doing the best that they can, but they don't have the appropriate tools or expertise, right, to manage this ongoing and these living and breathing devices, right? It's always changing. So we come in and we're able to reduce that time and take those people and take them out of the guessing game. Let them focus on other core initiatives. You guys are in construction. You guys are in healthcare, right? Do what you guys do best. And this is what we do. We live and breathe mobility, right? So we're here to alleviate the time. And as I mentioned earlier, the assessment typically we're able to reduce so much cost that it covers our cost. So now we become an extension of the IT department, pretty much at the expense of the carriers through the bill reductions we're helping realize. So that accountability reports to show you who's doing what, where, when, and how, helping finance allocate costs, right? So every division pays their fair share, unlimited support for the end users. So instead of them coming to, to Timmy and IT, right? He's trying to innovate and, help the C-level executives. And here comes Bob. Hey, my phone's not working. Hey, it's not sliding to the left. Hey, I just got this new device, right? How do I use it? Well, hey, can you help me sync some calendar contacts? All these time tedious things that typically come to the IT team can now come to us, right? Anything that's not financially impacting. to help them out, right? And show them that now, not only from the hard dollar savings, now from the labor efficiency, control, accountability, process driven partnership, they can see how much time, right? And accountability we're bringing to the table. So huge, huge savings on the labor efficiency and accountability processes.
Awesome. So from here, we are going to transition to strategy number 5. This is going to be the last one in our first section of the Save Money Now tips. And we are going to be talking about understanding some hidden BYOD costs, and we are going to focus on stipends. So we have another poll for you all. We are just going to see, what do you think would be a fair monthly stipend to support a BYOD policy? I'm going to go ahead and launch this, and we'll give you all a few minutes to send in your answers. Ooh, very interesting. All right, I'm going to give you all about just 10 more seconds here. All right, and sharing those results with you all, it seems like the $50 to $70 range is the winner here, but these costs that we've all voted on are quite spread out, which I do think is kind of what we are seeing in when we speak with customers, that these numbers can be all over the place. So we are going to tell you what the average stipend actually is. But first, let's share an interesting stat. So whatever you are paying as a stipend, you got to keep in mind that that is not all that you're paying. So Aberdeen Research Group found that it costs about $29 to process a stipend. So on top of the stipend amount, there are processing costs, there are internal time costs to add to your balance sheet. So Josh, let's unveil here the average stipend cost. And do you want to talk more about stipends and how they can be surprisingly costly?
Sure. It's always interesting to me to see the average on mobile stipends. How do organizations determine the amount of that stipend? Who or what is the baseline to determine that factor, right? I was reading a tech article on BYOD and it mentioned that one of the biggest hurdles in BYOD initiatives is tracking the business use of a device accurately. That's where things get a little difficult as most of the data and analytics relies on owning the account and thus the data where the device usage is reported on. So if it's a BYOD device, obviously the data and the analytics to determine the usage of that line during certain amount of hours, it lives solely on the end user's personal account. So how do you determine how much work is done on said device, and how do you determine how much the employee pays on their personal account? Are they paying for a single device plan, which could cost $70 or more, depending on what features they have on the account? Or are they on a family plan and only pay $30 a month for their piece of their phone? Plus $5 discount because of auto pay or something like that, right? So there's no clear cut answer when dealing with BYOD devices, as there's a number of variables, which is why it's so difficult to determine what that stipend amount should be ultimately. And that's why ultimately we see so many different stipend amounts being paid out by different organizations. There's no consensus on it.
Yeah, and if I can add, I mean, most companies, when they don't know about mobility management or lifecycle management companies, it's like, you know what, this is ridiculous. We're going to get out of the cell phone business. Let's just give everybody $70, right? $100, but they don't realize that 70 is now 100. That 100 is now 130. They lose total control. They still have to secure those devices through MDM because they're accessing corporate information, right? When what we see now, what I see in the industry is a lot of companies are going back to corporate model because of the security side of the house. Okay. And also because of the cost. Like, hey, you're giving somebody $70 for a tablet. they barely use it. Did you know on the corporate side, you can put it on a $13 plan? Like, you know what I mean? They still have all the access. Oh, they have a smartphone. Did you know there's a $35, $40 unlimited plan? You can put it on that. So they go into overspending, right? Losing total control. But there's some companies that have hybrid, hybrid approaches. So whatever the case may be, that's our expertise is to lead. So yeah, I just wanted to add that a little bit so companies understand that there's companies that think that they want to get out of the industry until they find out. Like I didn't know there was companies like this.
Hmm. Thank you. Josh and John on that one. That was our last tip in the Save Money Now category. So now we're going to transition to the tech debt that you may be setting your business up to accumulate in the future. And we're going to start with kind of a scary one here. Don't void your cybersecurity insurance policy. Your insurance policy is probably pretty important, something that you don't want to mess with. John, there's a myth we keep seeing out there about this. Do you want to tell us more about it?
Yeah. So there's a myth out there that mobile devices won't affect your cyber insurance policy. And the truth is, and what we found out, right, through underwriters at cyber insurance companies is that if a mobile device is found unsecure, okay, unmanaged, unencrypted, no MFA, not centrally managed through MDM, and that is an entry point for a cyber incident, you better believe they're going to try to not pay that claim, right? So it's really important to make sure that those devices are secure, they're updated, they're patched, right? Certificates are not expiring. There's a lot that goes on to make sure that those devices stay in compliance. So make sure, right, that your devices are covered, right, from a cyber security standpoint.
Right. You don't want to add the whole cost of that cyber policy that gets voided to your tech debt balance.
Right.
All right, so let's talk about some other cyber related tech debt you may be accumulating. Compliance fees and expensive breaches. John, I'm going to hand this back over to you. What do we mean by this?
So HIPAA, high trust compliance, FINRA compliance for the insurance and finance industry. Um, the maximum violation on a mobile device is about $72,000, I believe. Most companies, if a mobile device is not again locked down right correctly, and these devices are being used right inappropriately, there's some massive fines out there. The first one is out of control, right? Lack of encryption. These are all real. You can Google HIPAA violations. Um, but the second one, the second and third one, I kind of want to hone in on this $384,000. Okay, I was just for context, I was speaking at a conference and talking about cyber insecurity and violations and stuff like that. And when I was done, I did have a little line on the side, and one of them specifically stood out to me because it was a CEO and a CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, that said, "John, try $385,000." I'm like, "Wow, what happened?" She goes, "Well, one of my nurses had the audacity to go in and film one of our patients and put it on Instagram." I was like, "Oh my gosh!" So yeah, so there's huge penalties and fines for not following certain processes. So our job is really to help mitigate that risk because it's out there. People are doing and clicking and doing whatever they're doing. If you have thousands of devices out there, you have thousands of different personalities. You really need to make sure that those devices are protected and locked down, because fear from a financial hit like this is not doesn't sit well for sure.
So here we just took a look at the schedule of fees from HIPAA. Some of these fees, like we just saw, can be massive. And again, something that you don't want to be adding to your balance sheet, especially if those fees are coming from mismanaged mobile devices. And of course, compliance fees are not the only things that can be expensive in the security area. Breaches are expensive too, right, Josh?
Correct. As we can see by the average cost to small businesses in the slide, the risk of data loss and breaches can be very impactful, which brings us to the question of how exactly are we leveraging MDM software? How exactly are we leveraging threat defense software or antivirus software on these devices to secure corporate data and on not only the corporate owned devices, but the BYOD devices as well? Are we just using it to facilitate application deployment or streamline the setup process? What are we doing about iCloud or Gmail accounts, Apple IDs, all these stuff that are intrinsically trying to back up data automatically on these devices to a personal account, as an example? How do you get around privacy concerns about installing not only the MDM software, but the mobile threat defense software and possibly an antivirus software on a personal device, which do not necessarily differentiate between personal and corporate data? Now you're getting into those privacy concerns for your employees. All these questions revolve around compliance and policy. What is the organization going to allow as acceptable use on their corporate owned devices and on a BYOD type of device? The lesser of the two evils may be corporate owned device initiatives, or it may be that hybrid approach for corporate owned and BYOD. But the key, in my opinion, is understanding the pros and cons of both methodologies and putting in the policies and processes to accommodate said plan for the organization that they decide on. And we can help out with strategizing with both type of scenarios on our end.
Awesome. And like Josh mentioned here, this is the cost we pulled from the Verizon DBIR from last year. This is the cost for small businesses. You know, if your business is even just a little bit larger, this cost can balloon. And of course, the costs we're talking about in this section here are all the costs of inaction. John, you want to talk a little bit about that? You on mute again?
I do. I love my mute button. Uh, yeah. So again, cyber, it depends what you have, right? You have 1, 5, 10 million, insurance coverage. There's a lot of cost to it, right? The loss of insurance payout, compliance fees, the breach remediation. So even on the smallest, I mean, it can add to a substantial amount of money. So again, we're kind of hitting on this is serious. This is your money, right? The company's money, and it definitely needs to be protected.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we've been talking about all these different fees, hidden costs, details that you need to nail down. And of course, nailing down all these details separately is bound to be less efficient than thinking about the mobile device process more holistically. So, Josh, do you want to talk about some of the benefits of pairing all of these strategies together, planning in advance, and getting everything ironed out?
Sure. What we have to think about is that many of the components of managing devices with the carriers like Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, or some of the Canadian carriers is that they're interrelated with the life cycle of the device through the MDM management software. So what I mean by that is, for example, some systems related to the management of the MDM software are directly linked to the procurement of those devices with the carriers. So the Apple Business Manager integration or the Android Zero Touch integration begins when you procure a device or when you place an order with Verizon, AT&T. You have to make sure that those systems are integrated correctly. And in turn, the settings within Apple Business Manager are directly linked uh, with the MDM platform or software. So, for example, the APN certificates, the enrollment profile token, and the profiles related to the out of box experience, the application licenses, all of those are integrated with Apple Business Manager or Android Zero Touch. So it starts at procurement, it goes all the way through uh, multiple systems before it even hits the device. And during the setup of these new devices, all pieces of MMS and MDM kind of play together, right? Network activation with the carrier, sync of the new device from AT&T T-Mobile to the Apple Business Manager system or Android Zero Touch, the MDM user account, the MDM enrollment password, the MDM enrollment profile, the Apple ID bypass or backup, depending on how you have it configured, Android Enterprise enrollment, application installs, OneDrive backup. All of these things kind of come into play for an end user when they're shooting up a new device. When there's a disconnect in any of those processes mentioned above, the only one that ultimately suffers is the end user, right? Because it directly delays their ability to get up and running and get to their day-to-day job functions. The end user tends to be frustrated when you have to tell them, hey, I can't help you with that component of the setup. I'm gonna have to refer you back to your IT department or to a different department altogether. We can't handle that because we have no access or whatever the situation may be. And in my opinion, in our opinion, in these instances, having a team that is familiar with the ins and outs, not only of the carrier processes, like those activations, those ports, transfer liabilities, the rate plans, but also Apple Business Manager, zero touch enrollment, the MDM platform, compliance, conditional access. There's a clear advantage and differentiator when it comes to being able to support an end user at that level, uh, having like a whole holistic lifecycle management solution in place for that end user really differentiates us and makes for a really good client experience in our opinion.
Yeah, Josh, and that brings to mind for me, we're talking about the hidden cost here. What's the hidden cost of every time a user gets frustrated at their phone because they can't figure out how to do XYZ for 10 minutes? How often is that happening? How often are they struggling? Do they get so upset they have to put their phone down for a couple hours and walk away from it? Because we all know that sometimes these miscommunications when you're trying to get work done on a mobile device can be very frustrating. That can lead to a real concrete loss of productivity. All right, so here I'm going to hand it over to John quickly to just talk about how we've seen this really take effect on one customer that we worked with.
Yeah. So as you guys can see here, several customers experiencing the same thing. So when I had talked to uh, William over there, he wanted to let me know, like, look, challenge that we had, John, was we had two business units. Each of them had their own admins. They were doing their own thing. There was no policy. The billing was the way it was managed. It was taking a little bit longer for us to get done. We always had to provide invoices and billing information to accounting. It would delay things. They had questions around, usage. That caused some more issues. We're placing order for employees through Verizon and AT&T portal, which was totally separate. And it wasn't just standard; it wasn't working out. So thanks to you guys, we've been able to get our process a little more organized, saving us a ton of money. We were priorly spending every month sending to Verizon and AT&T. The billing part is now on track. All the reports and accountability is amazing for HR. You save us time and we have peace of mind. We have to worry about keeping track of our devices. It's all accounted for. You also provide huge opportunity with accessories and saving us money and simplifying the entire process. Thank you, Wireless Watchdog. So that was real client. I think we had saved them about 14,000 and some change a month, right when they jumped aboard. So it's just taking money away from the carriers, putting it right back into their bottom line, making life easier, improving processes around these living and breathing devices.
Awesome. And from here, going to hand it over to Andrea to talk a little bit more about how we really tackle this for customers.
Sure. So, what is a true life cycle solution? When we partner with clients, our goal is to help them create and maintain a true managed mobility lifecycle solution. What does that consist of? We want to enable organizations to manage their mobility program by simplifying, centralizing, and consolidating the processes related to this program. The idea is to remove the burden of device management and support from overtasked IT teams, which is something we've discussed throughout. We want to ensure the safety and security of the assets within a mobility program. Often, organizations may forget that part of their assets include phones and tablets. It's important to not let this be a vulnerability because whether the devices are corporate owned or you have a BYOD program, they contain sensitive organizational information that can be accessed and can present a risk to the organization with possible financial impacts, like John discussed earlier. This is something so simple and yet often overlooked. These assets are expensive and again can be a vulnerability that can be exploited if not properly secured. And that's why having an NDM framework or program is key to this. Another important goal of ours is reducing expenses related to your mobility program. Whether you have corporate owned devices or support a BYOD program, there are those hidden costs, like we've discussed, that lead organizations to significantly underestimate the true financial impact this program has. And hidden costs don't only relate to hard dollar savings, there are soft dollar savings that many don't consider, and we've kind of talked through the presentation. As an example, extending the life cycle of a device from onboarding to offboarding. The life cycle of a device starts with procurement of the device, ensuring that you're not only getting fair pricing on the equipment itself, but you're getting the best value out of the rate plans. Then throughout that life cycle, it's important to have easily reviewable data and analytics around how users or your employees are utilizing that device. Throughout that life cycle, an end user will need support. Them having to go back to IT and ask for support gets them frustrated. So having a specialized help desk that knows the ins and outs of carrier process, MDM process, phones, that has a huge impact on efficiency. And when it's time to offboard that device, say an employee is leaving or it's time for replacement, ensuring there's a process to recover the device, recycle it, and ensure it gets DoD level wiped. In our experience, most IT departments don't have the time, resources to worry about the end user support, cost management, the security compliance management, as well as creating the policies and educating employees or users on what appropriate uses of company owned devices. And as your organization grows, you need a mobility lifecycle solution in place to ensure you can scale and you're not incurring controllable additional costs. And that's why you need us.
Thanks, Andrea. And to our audience here, if you do want to work with an experienced team managing your mobile fleet throughout that entire device lifecycle, or if you need help implementing a bulletproof MDM strategy, those are both things, as we've mentioned, that we can help you with here at DataPrize. We can help you implement these the right way to help you avoid all of the hidden and not so hidden costs we talked about today. So if you would like to see how much you have the potential to save, we are also offering a free assessment of your existing mobile carrier plan. If you have 100 devices or more, it only takes about 10 minutes to grab the information we need to do an analysis and show you exactly how much we can reduce your bill. So again, completely free, no obligations. You can scan the QR code here, go to the URL listed on the page, or you can just send us a note at any of this contact information below. I'm going to keep this same QR code on this page so you can go ahead and still scan that if you like. So with that, we've come to the end of our session today, and we are going to take the last few minutes for Q&A. Before that, again, the QR code is the same as on the last page, so if you'd like to take advantage of that mobility assessment, I also have pictured here this guide that we will be sending out in the post-event email. It is 10 tips to make endpoints more secure. So please look out for that follow-up email so you can get your hands on that. Thank you to everybody in the audience today and those of you that submitted questions. Let's get into our Q&A time here. Let me just pull up this question section really quick. All right, so first question for the group. How frequently should we assess our mobile environment to prevent costs from creeping up?
I can take that. This is something you should be looking at on a monthly basis, and it's exactly what we do through our managed mobility services. We're reviewing the accounts, we're making changes when needed. Then we have your service delivery manager who reviews on a monthly basis additional opportunities to address costs and inefficiencies. As an example, John talked about unused devices. That's in our reporting, that's in what's covered in those meetings, part of what's covered in those meetings. So really, this should be looked at on a monthly basis.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrea. And another one here. Which mobile carriers offer the most cost-effective enterprise plans currently?
I'll take that one. Well, it all depends, right? Depends what industry you're in. It depends if do you qualify for a group purchasing organization plan? There's different ways to really um, select the carrier. It all depends. You know, we also got to think about coverage. So, you know, we see a lot in the Verizon side of the house, followed by AT&T and T, and then T-Mobile. T-Mobile is, you know, they came from the consumer side. Now they're in the business. They're trying to figure it all out. Some of the rate plans are pretty low there. But again, just new in support, right? You need accountability, reporting. Again, it's all the same thing, you know, to the coverage. You know, everybody's pretty getting close to being, you know, having full coverage. But at the end of the day, it really depends on how many devices, right? The expertise, right? If you have us on your side to help negotiate contracts, which we're stellar at, right? Because it's what we see. We see this for a living. We can help there as well. So it really all depends. But like I said, we have most of our clients are Verizon, followed by AT&T and T-Mobile.
Awesome. All right. Next one here. Are there metrics we can track in BYOD to help us determine if our mobile management practices are effective?
I would say, as far as metrics to track, I mean, you don't have access to their personal data, so you don't know, you know, what they're using. If they're, you know, spending an hour on their phone, you know, during work hours, what is that costing in productivity, safety? And then again, if we talk about metrics, the metrics stand out right now with me telling you facts that there's corporate plans that can be anywhere from, you know, 13 to 45 bucks, let's call it, right, for tablets, smartphones, and MiFi's. And if you're giving somebody 70 bucks, you're already overspending, way overspending, right? And you lose total control. Oh, and then the back end processes and systems. So those are only metrics. Obviously, you're going to have to lock them down, as mentioned earlier, because they're accessing corporate information, sensitive corporate information. But as far as, you know, metrics, that's all I can, you know, add. Josh, is there anything from your side?
Well, I kind of piggyback off of you. It's hard to determine data and analytics to get supporting metrics because all of that data lives on the personal account holders side. So I think best place to start looking for whether or not you have an effective practice internally is to look at your mobile device policy, the processes around enrollment, compliance, conditional access within the MDM tenant, and I think that'll give you a better idea if you have contingencies around security or not on those BYOD devices.
Awesome. Another question here. If our environment is extremely fragmented today, how long would it take to integrate this stuff properly?
Unmuted, so I'll keep going. Um, I'll take this one. It kind of depends on how the environment is currently managed, but some and most components of MMS and MDM can be implemented within the first 30 to 45 days after onboarding, and others are dependent on the company culture and the direction leadership wants to take with certain initiatives and processes. So sweet spot's usually the 30 to 60 days around there.
Awesome. And the last one here, can MDM tackle shadow IT devices unknown to IT teams? How does MDM ensure work devices are compliant when accessing organization resources?
Great question. So can we tackle shadow devices? Yes, you can leverage compliance policies, conditional access policies, as well as mobile application management configurations in order to add security contingencies to devices trying to access like O365 applications or any Azure cloud-based applications, or you could completely block them from trying to access data altogether. Um, So it depends on the configurations within your compliance policy, whether you allow certain OS levels to access the data, whether or not certain devices with screen unlock passwords and the complexity of those passwords. So there's a lot of cool little features that you could do within the MDM tenant to kind of put security protocols around the access of the organizational data. That was a really good question.
Awesome. Well, that is the end of our questions today. If you have any other questions, feel free to email them in at this email on the screen. Otherwise, I will close us out here with a thank you to our experts. Thank you, John. Thank you,
Thank
Josh.
you.
Thank you, Andrea. And one
Yep.
last thank you to our audience for joining us. We hope you each learned something new from today's event, and we hope to see you on the next one. Thanks, everyone.
See ya.
Bye.